Good morning, everyone. We are trying to fulfill our promise of having a panel of Mexicans today. They seem to be operating on Mexican time, so we'll have to wait a few more minutes. But what I hear is that I left many things unsaid. A lot of confusion in your heads. Too many questions. Some I'm sure I can't answer. But Didi suggested and you suggested that we do a little Q&A, and I'll be happy to do that, on everything that you learned this week.
Good morning and thank you. I read in the paper that maybe President Trump was finally successful in twisting the arm of President Sheinbaum, that he put an executive order out that anybody that supplies petroleum to Cuba will now be met with additional tariffs. And she said that, whoops, I guess Pemex has a problem all of a sudden and they can't supply petroleum. Did this happen?
Yes, the arm twisting was very real, and we could all feel it. Well, you know, I always like to give a little bit of context to things like this because Mexico has a long relationship with Cuba. It is true what you read. What newspaper was this? What? You need to know the sources. You know, Fox will say one thing, the Wall Street Journal will say another than you.
Unfortunately, I think it was the same one that talked about her giving away her seat at the FIFA game, and you gave a little more in depth to that. So I have to look at this source a little more carefully from now on.
Yes, that's how it was. Remember, at that agency I used to work for, we have sources and methods. So it's very important where the information is coming from and how it is being used. But yes, Mexico, when the Cuban Revolution came and all that, Mexico was the only country in Latin America that said, we will not break up diplomatic relations with Cuba when they went communist. And the United States was not happy about that at all. So yes, Venezuela and Mexico were sending crude oil to Cuba to survive at a very low price. Not every Mexican was happy about that. So we complained because it was almost a giveaway. This wasn't a business transaction. But sure enough, the White House said, you're going to see the consequences if we continue to see those Pemex ships. Pretty much the following day, we stopped sending those ships. And then, of course, Venezuela, you know the story. Venezuelan ships also stopped getting to Cuba, and this is one of the explanations of the big crisis there. Anyone here been to Cuba? Cool. Yes, I have been there too. It's beautiful. I'm sad that it's such a complicated issue here in Latin America, the Caribbean. But my feelings about that is that the Cuban people would not deserve this. You know, we Mexicans are like, yeah, we're giving away this ship of oil every so often, this boat full of oil. But we kind of understand, it's not an excuse, but we kind of understand that this is not just the regime benefiting, but also the people out there who can't even turn the lights on, right? Yes, in a very humanitarian sense. We get in trouble with the U.S. very often when it comes to Cuba, yes. And we still have diplomatic relations, and especially these 4 transformations we've been talking about, they love it. They have a good time with Venezuela previously and Cuba still, yes.
If not us, who?
What do you mean?
Susie, use a mic. Susie. Susie.
If not us, who?
Yes.
Who will help Cuba?
Right, pretty much. And this is what's happening. Remember, there was one more Russian boat with oil that got there, and the Russians sure could continue doing that, but they have the trouble in Ukraine, and I don't think they want to get into trouble with the U.S. more than they need to. This is a different Russia than the Soviet Union that used to subsidize Cuba a lot, yes. But this is all true. I don't want to scold you or anything. I just think it's really important that you, when you come up to me and say, I read on Facebook that Mexico is going down the drain. That says nothing to me. I really encourage you to go to the sources. We have a journalist here today, so you'll learn about that. So if you tell me it's the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Times, the Washington Post, I might look at it differently than my neighbor down the street wrote on Facebook. Well. No, that was about 3 months ago, or 4. It was a while, but yeah. And then those reserves and the Venezuelan reserves started dwindling, And now the power plants are not running because the oil is pretty much gone and not getting there, yeah. And, you know, the aircraft carriers are not there yet because how they're in the Middle East and they're having trouble themselves, but otherwise they would be stationed in front of Havana, I think, by this time. I think that was the plan. But then guess what? The Iran war didn't go as planned, so.
So who did you say you do trust? You said Washington Post and a Wall Street Journal. Who else that we can be reading down here?
Do I make some more time, or do we start with?
I think we can just go ahead. I have a feeling she's not going to make it.
All right. Well, I did not say I trust the Washington Post. What I said, this is a source I know. We know their line of reporting. The Wall Street Journal is a well-known newspaper. They're more a bit on the right. But what I'm saying is, if you know the source and the kind of leaning or slant they have, that's so much easier for you to interpret, right? If there is a Pemex press release about this happening, which there never was, because the president said, this is a changing international business strategy that our petroleum company has. So we are considering some changes. This is her admitting that she can't send the ships anymore, but Pemex will tell it differently than Reforma or Mural that you saw yesterday would cover.
Economist?
El Economista, yes, good one. Yeah. El Universal.
Mexico Daily News?
No, you can pass on that. Anything that's meant for you in English, you can pass. Now, if you go, pretty much. I mean, regarding these national issues, locally, I think it's fine. But if you want to know what really happened, I would recommend go to Reforma, El Universal, La Jornada. If you go to my website, I gave this lecture about media with you last year, and then I had something similar in Vallarta. So I put a blog post in my website, connectwithmexico.com, and there I make a list. This list you're asking me for, I made a list of the national newspapers and the TV stations and things where you can get. It's all in Spanish, so you will have to move all that to English, but those are the sources I think it would be worth it. So go to my page, blog, and then you'll find it there somewhere, a list of media. It's a fair question, though, but please don't say I favor this or that, because that's misreporting on your part. That's all right. Okay, so we will start a panel. We are waiting for the third panelist, but we'll hope she makes it here. She's a business owner. We hope she makes it. And okay, I'll explain how this is going to go. Then we have Dale here that will explain you who our guests are, and pretty much how they will continue. Hello. We do have another one, yes. So, like we said, now that you are pretty much experts on Mexican politics and pretty much everything Mexican, we wanted to train you these last 3 days for you to be tough reporters. I see you're doing your job. And have these Mexican voices. When I give these lectures and when I write stuff on Connect with Mexico, I always insist that it's very good for you to hear the Mexican story from Mexicans. So the more Mexicans I can quote for you to understand Mexico, I think the better. It is no coincidence they have a Mexican here telling you the Mexican story. It's going to be tough for me today because now I have competition. I have some more Mexicans there that will tell their story. So the point today is pretty much we'll have an open session where you can ask whatever you want, just as you've been asking me. The economy, the president, and what we want is these Mexicans' view of national issues. Do they agree with President Sheinbaum? Do they support her? Are local news a sham? Is the local mayor doing his job right or not? And many of the things that you could grasp from my lectures, you can also bring down on them. Some they might be experts on. We'll introduce them in a second, and that will tell you what kind of questions you could have depending on what they do. And Dale has helped us to bring these people here. You probably all know her. She is a Guadalajara reporter. So we're going to start. You pretty much know me. I will let them introduce themselves, and they will help us with that. We are going to decide if we're going to do translating or interpreting as we go. It all depends on their English. I know I have an English speaker there, we'll see. But hey, it's just a panel. I want you to be open about the questions you can do, and you can ask, and be patient with all of us as we get this thing going, okay? Any questions? Yes?
I just want to say, is there anybody here for the first time? Okay, so I don't have to introduce anybody. You know what's going on. Carlos is here interviewing a few of our local Mexican people, panelists. And so thank you, everybody, for coming the last day. I did pass out evaluations. If you could take some time later in the morning to fill them out. And I know there's pencils circulating. If anybody needs a pencil, let me know. And when you're finished, please just pass them in before you leave. And thank you very much for coming.
And two logistical things. One is, please remember to turn off your phones, because that's always something we forgot. And if you want to say something, wait for the mic, because there are about 18 to 25 people on Zoom who will want to hear your questions.
The mic thing is, well, I think we will share this. They will have that.
What's that? Give it to her?
Yes. This is when we're together. Yeah. So I'll let Dale introduce herself and add anything about the panel that I may have forgotten. And then you, Dale, you might introduce us to them and kind of tell us a little about them. Is that fair?
Okay, I'm introducing myself. My hearing is terrible. I'm Dale Hoy Palfrey. I write for the Guadalajara Reporter. I've lived at Lakeside for a little over 50 years. So I have lived through many political changes, among others, in this community. So I have a few opinions of my own about Mexican politics. And so I kind of failed here because some of the people that I invited had last-minute changes of plans. So we're missing Sofia Marquez, who you might know owns the little store Fiaga, the clothing store in Ajijic. She's brilliant, and she's very involved in social activism. She's like a community leader in that respect, because she's respected not only as a businesswoman but as a clear-thinking human. And so unfortunately she couldn't make it, and some other people as well. But I have brought together my granddaughter, Kay, who is well, I'll let her introduce herself, and my colleague, Francisco Cano, who operates an online news source. And so, Kay, introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kay Palfrey, and I am a student at the Prepa Chapala. I am now going to start 12th year. And we have some politics there at the school, but as everywhere else, right? I'm not exactly involved in them, but I know people who are, and I live in it or see it every day, so I would love to share that with you guys. And nothing, I'm excited to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, he'll say it in Spanish and then you'll answer.
Okay.
¿Qué tal? Buenos días, primero que nada. Feliz viernes, ya es viernes, ya vamos a descansar. Mi nombre es Francisco Cano, yo estudié la carrera de abogado en la Universidad de Guadalajara. Aparte también tengo la carrera no terminada, pero tengo la carrera en periodismo digital por la Universidad de Guadalajara, por el Centro de Formación para el Periodismo Digital.
So he is a journalist, he is a lawyer, he studied law at the University of Guadalajara, UDG, and now he is currently studying internet journalism on the net.
He estado capacitándome ya, me tocó esta transición de la era de papel a la era digital, me he estado capacitando, uno nunca deja de aprender en materia digital, está cambiando ahora con la IA, empecé otro curso, sobre todo con argentinos y colombianos que son los que están un poquito más avanzados que nosotros en materia digital y en materia de periodismo digital. Todo esto en la UDG virtual y en el Consejo Estatal para el Premio Periodismo de Jalisco, que nos dan ellos capacitaciones constantes.
So he is moving, he says his generation, I can relate, moved from hard copy stuff, from analog stuff into digital, and he has been forced to move into that as well. He tells us that young guys from Colombia and Argentina are very good at that. They have understood that. So he's also studying that at the UDG, and he gets support from the... ¿Dijiste el apoyo de quiénes?
A ellos hay un centro de formación para periodismo digital de la Universidad de Guadalajara, que es en línea y se pueden de todas partes del mundo.
Right.
Realmente los mayores que participan son colombianos y argentinos.
Because this is an online education program at the UDG on this digital online. It's online, and they're studying online journalism, and this is why he says that Colombia and Argentina are way ahead of us in a sense, because he has these teachers from everywhere as well. This is the digital era, right?
Tengo aproximadamente 17 años cubriendo la agenda local, que es los municipios de Chapala, Ixtlahuacán de los Membrillos, a Poncitlán, Jocotepeyano, porque ya es imposible territorialmente cubrir la agenda local. He tenido la fortuna de colaborar, no con mi nombre, por materia de seguridad, con algunos medios nacionales, en televisión y en periódico. En mi línea, en mi página en línea, el tema de seguridad, por obvias razones, no publico con mi firma ahí, pero sí en otros medios de mayor alcance.
So he has been reporting on local news for 17 years in 3 municipalities, including Chapala, but non-Jocotepec, is it? Not that. He does raise the question of security, so he publishes not under his name, but an alias, because it is dangerous. And he also contributes to national press media without his name, local reporting for national media, but never using his own name because of security concerns.
Pues a sus órdenes, y ya nos marcan ustedes la pauta de lo que gusten como iniciemos la charla.
Thank you, and you will set the step and the speed of the questions, so he's ready for them. Paco, bienvenido. Quiero preguntarte si quieres que hagamos la traducción todo el tiempo del inglés al español y todo. No sé si entiendes suficiente como para que lo hagamos sin traducirte a ti o tienes ahí a la inteligencia artificial. Con toda confianza, si necesitas que que hagamos una traducción todo, yo con gusto, nada más que nos lleva un poquito más de tiempo. O si hay algo que no ahí quede claro de alguien que pregunte, ¿quieres que la reformulemos en español? Con todo gusto también. Claro que si nos movemos en inglés y tú captas la mayoría, nos ayudas a todos, ¿verdad? Con toda confianza. Muchas gracias, Paco.
Can I make a comment? I wanted to make a comment that I understand most of what you've been focused on this week is national politics. I hope today there could be some questions or at least some discussion of some of the local political issues, which they're aware of, and I've been aware of. So, and you live here, so I think it's important to get some grasp on how local politics are being perceived.
You may have questions of your own, Dale. I'll allow that. We're kind of co-hosting, but if you have a question right now for any of them, we can start. If not, we can do that, Feel free to raise your hands and just, I know you do that.
Buenos días y muchas gracias. I should speak in English, right? Okay. English? Spanish?
Well, I had this Spanish exchange with Paco, so he says he has an AI translator there in his phone, so that is helping him a lot. But of course, I offered to actually do a formal translation if he misses out on something. So we're confident we can do it in English. Maybe you can go a little slow with your English, because that always helps, okay? And just speak as clearly as you can for them and for the Zoom guys, which we say hello to. But yes, let's keep it in English, and then if we have to do a little translating, we'll do that.
Okay, thank you. First, I would like to know how to get to your digital newspaper. Will you let us know? I would love to read that. Oh, okay. And secondly, the thing that most affects us locally, I think, is that Lake Chapala situation with the water in Guadalajara. And so can you give us an overview of what the problem is and why it seems to continue, the water issue with Chapala and Guadalajara?
Mi medio, yo siempre he querido que la política que muchos medios están siguiendo a nivel internacional, hay algunos, es de cobrar por acceder a las plataformas digitales. Para mí, yo creo lo contrario, creo que es un derecho humano el derecho a la información y más el Internet.
So he sees a lot of digital platforms around the world charging to grant you access as a business plan, right? He believes this should be more of an open access thing that is financed differently.
Es totalmente gratuito por Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Es La Voz de la Ribera de Chapala. Y tenemos un sitio web, www.lavozdelaribera.mx.
La Voz de la Ribera. I'll work to get my computer connected there because we didn't do that and get you. But we might even just show the platform. But La Voz de la Ribera de Chapala, and he is on Facebook, on Twitter, X, and Instagram as well. And you have a website, which is La Ribera.
En el sitio web tenemos 17 años de notas guardadas. A ustedes en el buscador incluso se puede traducir a varios idiomas. Y ahí tú ya le pones alguna clave que quieres saber a Ajijic, te va a aparecer todas las notas de Ajijic.
Yeah, he has the website as such. So there's the social media stuff, but he has a formal website as such. And you'll be able to search and even move stuff to English as well, which will be very helpful. La Voz de la Ribera de Chapala. .mx. Yeah.
www.lavozdelaribera.mx.
Okay. I'll get my computer to put it up there for you. La Voz de la Ribera. I can spell that out for you. La Voz de la Ribera, ¿cierto? LAVOZDELARIBERA. La Voz de la Ribera. Ah, muchas gracias, chao. No se me ocurrió que con su computadora, perfecto. Muchas gracias.
Que por cierto, en acotación, lo acabamos de renovar porque nos lo tumbaron hace menos de 24 horas, una situación que está sucediendo con los periodistas en México, pero lo tenemos alojado en Estados Unidos y rápido lo podemos subir.
¿Hubo un hackeo? ¿Entendí correctamente? Yeah, they just updated and renewed the page because there was a hacking attack recently as well. ¿La ayuda vino de Estados Unidos o fue de...?
Lo tenemos hospedado en Estados Unidos.
Oh, now it is hosted in the United States to prevent those hacking attacks from happening. It's all open.
México y ahorita local están las cosas muy cambiadas, sobre todo porque viene un proceso electoral. Hay mucho movimiento y ahorita los que ejercemos periodismo somos muy incómodos.
Yes, journalists are not very welcome now because now, you know, he's saying we're having a midterm election next year, and that makes people, politicians, and everyone a little nervous, and there's a lot of movement, he says, right? People are shaking up for getting ready for the midterm elections next year, which makes everything more dangerous, right?
Ahí sí pueden ver, pueden buscarlo, si a ustedes les interesa alguna nota en particular, pueden buscarlo. Ahorita lo más reciente que tuvimos fue la visita de la Organización Panamericana de la Salud, por el tema que nos preguntaba de la calidad del agua. Ahí está, y ahí pueden consultar.
You can search there by city, by topic, like any newspaper, and he's saying they're reporting on the Pan American Health Association that came to Chapala to check on the water because the water wasn't. That was your original question, right? But so they did reporting on the water quality in town. Yes.
Wait, let him answer my question.
Thank you. Oh, you know that yet.
Who's next?
Yeah, she wants to know about the lake and the water.
¿Algún comentario sobre el agua en particular que tengas?
Creo que lo que estamos viviendo de lo del tema del agua, pues sí es un tema muy discutido, lo que todos sabemos, la polución, los grupos, hay muchas normas muy buenas, México tiene leyes muy buenas, pero tenemos burocracia muy mala.
So he's saying, yes, the water issue has been rising up in the political debate. He says, you've heard this before this week, he says Mexico has very good laws, water laws, but very bad bureaucracy. So that's where the problem begins. Bureaucracy, yes.
This is related to the lake, because I see the lejero, the hyacinth in the lake, and I just see it as it's a potential resource, and I wonder if anybody looks at, I don't know, harvesting it, composting it, that is there?
Ella pregunta sobre el lago y el lirio que está ahí, y ella dice, debe haber una forma de hacerlo industrial, renovable, limpiarle, porque lo está viendo. Si sabes que hay algo sobre eso.
Precisamente ese tema lo toqué hace no menos de una semana, que llegó mucho lirio. Para nosotros los locales es una buena señal porque nos quiere decir que está llegando agua del río arriba, de la cuenca arriba del Estado de México, que está entrando agua al lago de Chapala, es una señal que hay lirio.
Yes, he talked about this a week ago. Hablaste de eso en el periódico, ¿cierto? No fue como una conferencia. Okay. So he touched on that on the newspaper, and he says that they have been noticing this coming in. ¿Es buena noticia? ¿Te entendí correcto? Que llegue el agua.
Es buena noticia porque está llegando agua. Lo que sí, mi sentido de la nota que saqué, que fue una videonota buscando autoridades locales, incluso tuve ahí una contestación ahí de otras autoridades a este nivel estatal, es donde había quedado una maquinaria que se compró hace más unos 10 años, que una maquinaria para mecanizar la extracción de lirio y no hubiera tanto lirio. Y yo lanzaba esa pregunta y preguntaba a todos ahí, no tuve respuesta oficial, pero ahí abajo a través de cuentas artificiales me contestaban que estaba trabajando en tal lado.
Claro. So, this is partly good news, that thing on the water, because that means cleaner water from all the way to the state of Mexico, that's next to Mexico City. So the river is flowing again, and the water is actually getting here. So that's kind of good news for the lake to get new water, and not just what it had. So one of the issues was a machinery. So he says there is a machinery, there's a system that will take this in and produce something out of it. So it was bought in a previous state administration about 10 years ago. So he put that on the report. There were answers. He says, I never got an official response, but surely one or two bots responded that the machines were fine, they were out there working, there was no problem at all.
Yeah, I've lived through ups and downs of Lake Chapala, and we have had, the lirio has been there for more than a century. It comes and goes. And a number of years ago when they got these machines, it was a huge issue because right now it appears, it floats off, it goes, the winds and the currents carry it. So you'll see it and then the next day it's gone. We don't have a major issue with the lirio right now, as we did a few years ago when, I don't know, a third of the lake was covered with it, and it really had a huge impact on fish life and on the lake itself because it overheated and it reproduces really fast. I mean, it's a strange bug plant. So at one point, when it was really bad, they treated it with chemicals with glyphosate, which is one of those Monsanto things that people absolutely hate. They said the fish life would completely die. That didn't happen. So they apparently did it in a very effective way that it reduced it. They have also harvested it. And as you say, there's been talk about that you can make things out of it. You can compost with it. But it also absorbs heavy metals. So is it a good compost material? I mean, there's lots of issues about the lirio, but it comes and goes every year. And as Paco says, when the people who live here see the lirio, it's like, okay, we're getting a lot of water from upstream.
I just think paper making or products, I mean, it could even be brick making, that something could be done with it. And look at it as a resource, I mean, instead of a pollution, although I don't see the diminishment that you're, like around Ajajic, Centro, I would say there's plenty of it, and there's been plenty of it for months.
Primero recordarles que el lirio no es mexicano. El historiador Tony Burton acaba de subir hace un par de días a su Facebook un archivo histórico del origen de cómo llegó el lirio al lago de Chapala, que tiene sus beneficios. Hay estudios, no existe yo siempre digo que depende, la verdad, depende del enfoque que tú lo veas, porque hay investigadores que dicen que tiene sus beneficios tener lirio en el lago, pero el lirio no es del lago, no es original de aquí.
He's saying that it's important to note that this is not a Mexican plant. It came from somewhere else, and it's not really clear whether it's really that damaging or whether it's a benefit for that lake. So we're kind of still studying what actually to do with it and what's being done elsewhere, where it actually came from. Yes. Lo que ella dijo, no sé si captaste, es que ella se imagina de hacer ladrillos, texturas, textiles, cosas con eso, como tendría que haber algún tipo de producto material que hacer con el lirio, pero no sé si eso es parte de la investigación. Digo, quizá la pregunta es, esas máquinas que ustedes mencionan, ¿qué hacían?
Las máquinas, incluso pueden buscarlo como Chapala Limpio en el webpage o en Google. Chapala Limpio se llama el programa. Las máquinas lo que hacían era tecnificar la extracción del lirio para que no fuera una extracción a mano. Es como un tractorcito que flota sobre el agua y va sacando el lirio y se van haciendo pacas de lirio y se utilizan para compactar en áreas agrícolas. Ese programa fue del gobierno del estado cuando era gobernador Aristóteles Sandoval, el fallecido gobernador. Y ellos me debatieron muy fuerte que sigue funcionando, pero muy discretamente por falta de recursos. Yo, honestamente, no lo he visto, por eso no puedo afirmar que siga funcionando.
So the machines were used pretty much to mechanize the extraction of this. It was partly used for agriculture, and that was that. So it was removed from the lake, packed, and moved out to farmland. But that was pretty much the program by that state government was called Chapala Limpio, Clean Chapala. You can look at it for that. Even though officials claim it's still working and doing fine, he knows the lake, he's been around, and he's never seen them actually working presently, right?
Okay, also on the water, people look at the lake and when it's high, we're happy. But as for underground, I have for quite a while number of years now, tried to find out more about the situation of the aquifers and the water under the ground. Only about 3 to 4% of your rainfall per year actually ends up down there. And what I have found out is that we tend to overdraw our quota every year. And we continue to build. So this is a national issue, but it's also a local issue. I have read also that Sheinbaum is reviewing the water concessions because she doesn't want people using it for profit and to sell at these high prices to the places. So I'd just like to hear your opinions on what you think the government could be doing to help us locally with our water conservation and our water management especially.
Sí, porque bueno, la pregunta es, de repente les da mucho gusto que el lago tenga más agua porque llovió, pero ella se preocupa del subsuelo, de los acuíferos, y correctamente dice que es un problema nacional, pero ha oído que la presidenta ha implementado o querido poner una nueva política de agua nacional para que los concesionarios no tengan tanta agua y la tengan más la gente. En fin, ella se pregunta cuál es tu opinión de ese plan de agua y si hay una forma de que tú crees que el gobierno pueda localmente en Chapala ayudar a ese uso más ecológico del agua.
Trato de no dar mi opinión, mejor les doy datos, doy hechos, y ustedes se forman su opinión solos.
I'll give you some facts, not just not my opinion, but facts, so you can make your own opinion.
Okay, because I've had a hard time getting that.
El hecho es que nos han visto a los que habitamos y formamos parte del hábitat de lo que es el lago de Chapala, nos ven como un tinaco. Nos miden realmente la cantidad del agua y no la calidad.
And so, ¿te refieres a Guadalajara o en general? Yeah, everyone seems to look at Lake Chapala as a tinaco, as a water tank. They are concerned about amount, not quality. So that's one first thing that is a problem, that people are just looking at a water source regardless of quality.
Lo que está pasando es, en México, es un tema no solo local, no solo regional, es internacional, creo. Nos está cansando el tema de la necesidad del agua en todos lados. Vemos a diario las noticias de poblaciones y protestas, sobre todo en zonas metropolitanas grandes, de protestas por necesidad de agua potable hacia las colonias. Y el gobierno, todos los gobiernos se están enfocando en cómo esa problemática que la vemos muy lejana nosotros, lo del problema del agua, ya nos alcanzó. Ahora el gobierno está enfocándose cómo dar agua a esas colonias, porque están cerrando tráfico y están afectando a muchas poblaciones. Nosotros mismos lo hemos vivido, que han cerrado la carretera Chapala para el aeropuerto, o gente que tiene que tomar sus vuelos o ir a actividades a Guadalajara, se cierra porque hay colonias, los agaves, hace poco tuvieron una protesta porque no tienen agua.
So this is a national issue, like you say, it's very regional as well. It is the hardest on the big urban areas, Guadalajara, Mexico City, Monterrey. So he thinks the governments are more focused on water availability and providing this water to far away neighborhoods who are the ones who come out and close the road to protest. He said this has happened here on the way to the airport. People close down those roads, because I will add that that's the best example of protest that we have, closing down a road. And remember our Tlatelolco syndrome? The police will hardly ever be there taking them out. So they close the door, they demand the government for water, for running water in those out neighborhoods.
Hay una reforma a la Ley de Aguas Nacionales, impulsada por la presidenta Claudia Sheinbaum. Es única y exclusivamente, bueno, ellos así lo dicen, yo no podría afirmar lo que sea tal cual, porque no me adentro demasiado ese tema. Ellos lo que dicen que la reforma viene en el sentido de regular la utilización de agua para sectores productivos como cerveceras, refresqueras y ejidos, porque recordemos que las berries, aguacates y alguna producción llevan demasiada agua. Entonces, el objetivo de ellos, lo que ellos dicen el gobierno es que se va a priorizar el uso del agua a consumo humano y no a producción agrícola, a producción industrial. Eso todavía sigue el debate en varios ejidos. Hay algunos mecanismos legales todavía que están por ahí implementando algunos ejidatarios, algunos productores, pero todavía no es nada definitivo, no estamos viendo todavía en sí que haya sido definitivo esa aplicación de esa ley.
La reforma está discutiéndose, no se ha hecho, ¿verdad?
La reforma ya está.
Ah, ya está aprobada y todo.
Están aplicando,
Okay.
tenemos muy buenas leyes, pero muy malos los políticos.
Muy bien. I was asking if, so there was a recent updating, amending of the national water law, and he's explaining to us that the focus of that is controlling how much water industrial establishments like beer producers and soda producers use, and whether they are just taking too much or wasting too much. He also mentions the ejido, this communal properties, and he says that some of the agriculture, the produce that they do take a lot of water. So the government is concerned about whether there could be a more efficient ways of using that water. But of course, his conclusion is, so I asked if the reform had been passed. It has been, but he says the enforcement, the application of the law changes from state to state, and the laws the law, the reform is very good, but then the implementation is very bureaucratic, and you know what happens after that.
Ahora yo les pregunto a ustedes, yo tengo entendido y tengo alguna información de que ustedes en esta zona de la ribera tienen problemas con el abastecimiento de agua diario. Yo vengo de una población que está aquí a un menos de 10 kilómetros, que es Atotonilquillo, Tequiza. Nosotros tenemos agua todos los días. ¿Y cómo puede ser algo tan irónico que ustedes quieren pegados al lago de Chapala no tienen agua diario y los de Guadalajara se la llevan para potabilizarla? Y la población alrededor del lago no tiene acceso al agua del lago.
So he's asking you now, how's your water availability, if you have water in your homes, because he says he's coming from a town 10 kilometers off, que se llama, ¿cómo es el pueblo? Atotonilquillo. You need to remember that. Atotonilquillo, please. So his point is, over there, they always have water. There's not a water issue in that small town up there, going up the mountains. But here, you're right next to the lake, and many of you, it would appear, do not have enough water in your homes. Is that the case? I heard a lot about plumbers yesterday. 2 people said they couldn't be today because plumbers were, I'm like, what? Is the king of England coming?
¿2 días a la semana tienen agua o cuántos les ponen el agua?
2 days, yes.
Are there other questions?
For me? Oh, I wasn't making a big comment, just that Riberas historically has very bad water in Riberas, and when it rains very heavily, I have water coming up through my floor. And when we tried to put a tinaco underground, it kept popping up. So the aquifera is muy cerca, it's very close to the tierra, the ground. The aquifer is very close.
Sí, lo que dice es que en la ribera el agua sale del suelo, que pues trataron de poner un tinaco como una cisterna y flotaba desde el suelo, ¿no? Lo entiendo, en Puerto Vallarta nos pasa un poco lo mismo, pero...
I forgot your name. Kay. So I have a question, 2 questions for you. One is how they're both, how in your school do you discuss one thing, the lake, and how are there classes on politics? Do you discuss what's going on with Scheinbaum? And what are your views on Scheinbaum? Is there a lot of discussion in your classes and things like that with your peers?
Okay. About the lake, there is a group called CUUF. I don't remember the significance of the initials, but it's a group of students from the prepa who got together and want to help clean the lake. They were doing meetings, and they even got T-shirts done to go and down to the lake, help clean it, and maybe do some research or activities to help it. So that's what I know about the lake topic. And about politics, we don't exactly have like a class specified to that, but we do have history class, and that involves a lot of our former presidents and our past, our, how can I say it?
You said it was like the history of the evolution of democracy and the political system.
Yeah, it's an evolution of all the presidents that we've had through time. And about Sheinbaum, like I said, not exactly a class about that. She's obviously mentioned in a few classes. And the fact that I remember when I was in secundaria, which is middle school, it was when she was running for president, and a lot of teachers were mentioning how good or bad it would be, how they were against it or opposed it, and when she won, it was like, in a way, incredible that we got our first female president, and they were very proud of that. But now going into the prepa, it's like, how good is that really? And I think that's basically what we can discuss. We don't, like I say, don't really have a politics class, but it is mentioned in a few days. I hope that helped.
Next.
Water is important, but I want to ask about language. I think I must learn to speak and understand Spanish here, and I wonder what the local government and perhaps the federal government are doing to encourage bilingual education among the young people, and whether they should. I'm not sure about translation technology. It seems to be helping me and it helps you. And it's not just Spanish, also the indigenous languages. There are so many of them. And I wonder how effectively or how extensively they are taught in the high schools and colleges.
You're saying teaching English to Mexican students. Is that your question on? Yeah, pretty much. Entonces, no sé si viste, él sabe que el agua es importante, pero quiere preguntarte sobre el idioma. Entonces, él entiende que hablar español, aprender español, le serviría mucho. Pero en realidad te quiere preguntar qué tanto hace el gobierno federal y los gobiernos de los estados para incluir esos idiomas extranjeros fuera del español en sus clases, incluyendo las lenguas indígenas, ¿no?
Teóricamente hay asignaturas tengo entendido desde la secundaria, para un idioma extranjero. Ya a nivel profesional ya uno elige si es inglés o francés o alguna otra lengua, pero la mayoría, me atrevo a decir que un 90% sí da el inglés, pero es un inglés pues muy básico.
So the programs of study nationally do include a foreign language all the time, all the way from elementary school. Usually, more than 90%, it is English. I can tell you that was my case. And then usually when people move on to college, they will switch to French or something else because they have enough English by then to go into a third language, right? But yes, it is part of the syllabus. Everyone must do it. And it is a low-quality English class, if you will, but still there. Yeah.
Solo acotar que ahorita estamos, como la vida, todo es ciclos. México estamos en un cambio. Yo no quiero calificarlo si bueno o malo. Ya les tocará a las nuevas generaciones decir si sí o si no. Estamos viendo nosotros en México una revolución que se llama también ideológica y es parte de los que ostentan ahora el poder, de que ya se está modificando esa podemos decirle, esa política de dar clases de inglés desde educación básica.
Yes, so you know about this. He is talking how life is cycles, and Mexico historically now is going through a new cycle with a new regime, with a new political force, taking care of these public educational syllabuses and all that. So he's saying, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but things are changing. And not a lot of people, not everyone agrees on how the education content of public schools is changing because they are changing. That was indeed a bit of a controversy last year with, we have these free textbooks that the government gives out, not only to public schools, but everyone. And there's been a big controversy about the content of that, just like in the US, what's actually our kids learning. So that's what he's talking about. Yes.
Other questions? There's one.
I'd like to hear what Kay has to say about bilingual education and her experience.
I have, now that I am in a public school, yes, the English that we have is, like he said, very basic. It's like, hello, my name is. Even like until 12th grade, it's still the basics, verbs, and all of that. And as a public school, or private school, sorry, that I was in during primary and secundaria, the things that we did see were also basic, but in a way, no, it really was all basic. It was all, my name is, the color purple, and everything like that. And now in 12th grade that I am in, you have the ability to exempt that class, which is basically if your English is good enough, you can skip it. In my case, I do, because as you can see, my English is okay. But I see a lot of friends that do struggle with it because they do wish to learn more, but the teachers that maybe don't know how to explain it as much, and also them that they just don't understand it, I think it's also an issue. But yes, like he said, we do have obligatory English classes in public schools, but it is very basic. That's all. And everybody has 100, yes.
There is good news then.
Okay, a technical issue first. Salvador, if it is possible without miking it up too much here, there's feedback from Zoom that this mic is not as loud on Zoom. And I will have a question from Zoom, but you were next.
I would like more information about the freedom of the press and why you, Francisco, feel like you need to publish under an alias, and if that is different now or changing now.
Sí, tu visión de la libertad de prensa en México, y ella te pregunta qué es lo que hace o cómo te sientes de tener que escribir con un anónimo o un alias.
A partir de que sufrí el hacker, tenemos una semana, te lo platico a ver, tenemos una semana que nos han estado atacando muy duro con inteligencia artificial. Personalmente, a 3 compañeros de nosotros que cubrimos local, con la inteligencia artificial han modificado nuestros rostros, nuestros medios, para un ataque coordinado con cuentas falsas, estar tratando de generar una distorsión de lo que hacemos.
So this big hacking attack was a week ago, and it's only been increasing, and they're using artificial intelligence to even change the shapes of their heads, their photographs, even the site, how it looks, and it's getting stronger and stronger as they go.
Claro que hay repercusiones hasta en el estado de ánimo de nosotros de seguir o no seguir. Sobre todo porque vemos un aparato del Estado que debería protegernos que no lo está haciendo.
Yeah, we don't feel really motivated to continue doing this, which we know is important, because even the schemes that the government should have to protect us are not there, are not effective, right? Are not efficient.
Eso me lleva a recordarlo como empecé presentándome. A los que ya tienen tiempo aquí en Chapala radicando, ojalá que no salga mucho por internet, recordarán los episodios violentos que vimos de él hace cuánto, será unos 15 años, del granadazo y un episodio de violencia, desaparecidos con protestas y con mucha violencia. Estamos viviendo ahora ya una etapa de tranquilidad, podría decirse, a comparación de lo que vimos en ese tiempo. Me tocó, cometí el error, yo estaba muy joven todavía, de aventarme a sacar una nota a nivel nacional con un periodista nacional. Híjole, no dormí, 3 días no dormí. A partir de ahí me hice hipertenso y otro tipo de enfermedades, porque la presión ya no sabe ni de quién viene.
Eso fue hace 15 años, ¿cierto? So he's saying, like it started today, he feels like it's currently now a calmer period in Chapala and nationally, quote unquote, because right here in Chapala, it's quiet. But 15 years ago, he says, you might remember there was a lot of clashes, people were disappearing, and he says he was very young and he decided to have a note, an article published. Fue impreso.
Salí en cuadro en un noticiero nacional y pues…
Fue como entrevista en él.
No, mandé yo material con Ciro,
Ciro Gómez.
Y había una protesta por desaparecidos y híjole.
So he did have that information, and his face was shown on a national media, national Mexico City media. He was young, he says, wasn't that experienced. He says that was a mistake. So his blood pressure has been high ever since. he has trouble sleeping. He did not sleep for 3 days after giving that interview to Mexico City. So he has felt in his body this change and this threat about journalism, yes.
So I actually have a follow-up question for that, which is that we are broadcasting this by Zoom, but it is only to people who have been given a link. So my question for security purposes is whether you would prefer that this panel session today not be available.
O sea, la aclaración técnica dice es que lo estamos transmitiendo por Zoom, están las cámaras, solo a la gente que se le dio esa liga para poderlos ver, hay gente allá afuera. Y la pregunta es si por cuestión de seguridad tú quieres, la idea es después no publicarlo, sino ponerlo en YouTube o algo, si prefieres que eso no suceda, después.
No importa, ya me conocen todos con esta campaña que tuvimos de bots, que supimos quién lo hizo, porque nosotros nos tuvimos que investigar, claro, eso hacemos. Y fue un político local el que andaba pagando porque nos hicieron todo esto.
No, it is all right. People know him. There's a politician going after them already, so they know. And there would be no problem if actually this was put online eventually, yes.
Next was, I think Terry's next. I haven't forgotten you.
Thank you. Hi, I have a question for Kay. So your grandmother writes a weekly column, a great weekly column that helps guide gringos, expats, foreign residents, whatever word you use, on how better to connect with the Mexican communities. And I say communities because there are many of them. Can you, in your opinion, sum up the top 3 things that, I like the word gringos, it's just easy, that gringos should keep in mind when trying to connect with their neighbors or with whomever, somebody at the market, I don't know, wherever. I'd really appreciate hearing your viewpoint.
Okay, thank you. I think the first one would be to not look at them down, because I have personal experience, have had gringos. I used to work at a store, a pet store, that they would come in and treat us as help, you know, as give me, bring me, snapping fingers, you know, and just expecting me to talk in English when it's like, yes, I do, but not everybody does. So I think also it's that. The second one would be trying to speak Spanish, even if it's just buenos días, no hablo español, could you help me? That's very different than good morning, give me this, bring me this, you know? It's a really big difference, and the attitude mostly. And the third one, I think it would be just to be kind. And how can I say it? I'm thinking, that's a very good question. I think the third one would be, like I say, to be kind and be interested in the things that Mexicans are interested in, and not like copying it or making it your own, but experiencing it and accepting what it is, like the fiestas and the fireworks. I know that's not the best thing, but it's ours. And also our food and all those kinds of things. I think those are what's important. Thank you. Thank you.
In other words, manners.
Yes.
Diles que ahora si quieren aterrizar a lo local.
¿A lo local?
Ajá. So, a lo de Chapala, lo que vimos aquí en Chapala, de lo que me habías dicho del tema de lo local.
Okay, we'll let her ask her question.
Yeah.
So is it the cartels that are causing you to be afraid to say things?
Son los cárteles de la droga los que de hecho hacen que tengas un poco de miedo de publicar con tu propio nombre.
Fíjense que en estos 17 años he aprendido algo poco, a lo mejor, porque todavía estoy aquí. Ellos no te avisan. No te avisan, no te infunden miedo. O sea, no sí te infunden miedo, pero dije mala palabra. Ellos no te avisan que van a ir a hacerte algo. No te amenazan como lo hacen puede ser el gobierno, los políticos o otros sectores. Eso yo creo que he tratado de diferenciar, porque primero sí me preguntaba y estaba yo con mi incertidumbre. Y ahora he entendido que mi mejor seguridad, por eso yo ya no manejo, me manejo en autobuses o ando en lugares públicos, porque mi mejor seguridad es mi privacidad.
So he's been doing this 17 years and he has learned a few lessons. One is that the cartels will never give you a warning. They will not tell you in advance that they're actually after you. Those warnings he has never seen, but he finds that his best defense is doing things differently and his privacy. So he's saying, I no longer drive. I take a bus, I take a cab because I don't want them to identify me with a vehicle, actually. So there's some things that have changed in his life in order to prevent this. Yeah. Other people, he's saying, I'm sure he's saying politicians are more open and in their dislike or in their, I'm not liking what you're publishing, as opposed to the cartels.
See?
10 minutes. Coffee, tea, water. Zoom guys, there's cookies here and coffee. We'll be right there. I'm sure you'll hail Bell.
Now it is. Can everybody take a seat? We have lots of questions. We hear that there are 4 or 5, some questions from Zoom. So we're going to start there, and then we're going to proceed. So thank you.
So the first question is, and I have no idea who asked these questions on Zoom, so I'm the guy. What happened to the public hospital that was promised to Chapala? Was money diverted from that hospital to a different hospital, for example, to Hoya?
Iba a haber un hospital público local nuevo y la gente se pregunta dónde está, qué pasó y si quizá ese dinero no llegó a donde tenía que llegar o quizá llegó a un lugar como el Hospital Joya.
Creo que hay una confusión. No es público, pero no es gratuito. Es para afiliados del IMSS. Únicamente se hizo la donación del terreno. Digo, tenemos buenas leyes, pero muy malos burócratas otra vez. Tan es así que falta tiempo para que se construya porque es el lugar que ocupa actualmente la Policía Municipal en Chapala, se refiere en Chapala, ¿no? Tendrían que buscar primero cambiar a la Policía Municipal a otro espacio, construir el edificio, pero no hay ni siquiera algún presupuesto autorizado para la construcción de ese hospital. Y vuelvo a recalcar, no es público, es únicamente para afiliados al IMSS.
So he says there's bound to be confusion with this because this is a public hospital but not open to everyone, only to those with a Mexican Social Security Institute membership. You know, there's the public hospitals for everyone. That has been changing with the current government. But if you work and you pay your Social Security and your pension to the Mexican Social Security Institute, you also get medical services, health services for free without quota. And so he's explaining that the land was given to the IMSS to build that hospital, but that land is currently the site of the municipal police station. So they need to get rid of the police station, clear out the land, and then build a hospital that will only really work for Mexican Social Security Institute members.
And the slaughterhouse. The slaughterhouse and the police headquarters are on the property that they gave to IMSS.
And he repeats, the plan is very well, the law that will make this possible is also very well, but the implementation and the bureaucracy get in the way a little bit. His words.
Okay, question number 2, and then I'm going to have a question for Kay. Okay, so let me do Kay first. And this is my question, this is not from Zoom. I'm curious to know 2 things about your education in prepa. One is, what would you change in terms of what you are taught? And the second is, what percentage of the graduating class has the privilege or the ability to go on to university?
Thank you. Of the first question, I think since we are turning from adolescents to young adults, I think good classes like how to get a house or how to maybe build a house, what permits do you need, how to pay your taxes, how to work a bank account, like all these little things, like I think that would be really cool. Also, how to do
Paperwork.
Paperwork to get your own social medical security. We do have some from the prepa, but a lot of kids don't know how to get it. So I think like things like that, to know how to live independently, would be really cool. I also think that for history, what you were talking, I mean, a politics class would be really cool for people who are interested in becoming politicians. That would also be very nice. and also an extra guidance for careers that we want to take, like what you need to do, what they involve, if you do go into a career, what are you going to do, and where can you get jobs for that? I think also very important. And the second question, it's, yeah. A lot of kids do drop out because they have a lot of, asistencia, no tienen buena asistencia.
Attendance, they've been missing
bad
classes.
attendance, they skip a lot of classes. So that's also a big issue in how they graduate or not. So we started the semester with 60 students, and I think now we're about to be 50, but a lot of those, probably maybe like 30 will graduate. It's really hard to tell, and a lot of them, they do graduate, but in a few more years because they are retained because they have to repeat certain classes. So from those 30 that graduate, let's say, maybe 20 get into university, and then from those 20, maybe 10, 15 actually finish their career. So I think that, well, that's my perspective.
Anyone want to ask a follow-up question about that?
Yeah, I have a follow-up question about the educational system, and I'm wondering if you have like social or emotional aspects to the education. I do see that Mexicans are more buena educada, as they say. That they have awareness of living in a bigger sphere. The U.S. system is very, it's on you, individual. So I'm wondering if there's an aspect of that. And then next to that, I was wondering about if you have communication classes, like mindfulness or, that nonviolent, if you're taught anything about how to listen and how to communicate.
Thank you. I think for the manners part, it's because a lot of Mexicans are born in a big family. So they aren't raised to like just think of themselves. They have to think of their cousin, and they have to take care of the little brother, and have to also care for the eldest grandmother, and all those little things that I think that it's just something that's a seed that's born in us since we're born, sorry. And so I think that's part of the manners part, the buen educado, because if you're not, you get a punishment, yes. And for the school, yes, we do have a system of 6 psychologists there at the prepa. I'm not sure how many actually go and use them, but we do have it, and they are qualified. So we have that.
I feel like our education systems in both countries are failing our children by not teaching life skills, how to take care of yourself physically, nutritionally, psychologically. And so is the Mexican public school system basically still based on the reading, writing, arithmetic, and a lot of college preparatory classes, and not recognizing that 50% or more of these kids are never going to go to college? Why don't we teach them to be good citizens, good humans, and how to take care of themselves? Do you see this as a problem that should be addressed in future systems of education?
Yeah, definitely. Like I mentioned, I mean, having classes that will teach you how to be or take care of yourself as an adult would be excellent and really helpful for kids that maybe don't want to go into a career, or they rather just do something else by themselves. But I think, yes, that is something that should change, because we're in different times. Technology, like he said, is the new step to the future. So I think also more classes encouraging or teaching that to use it in a safe way and secure would also be beneficial.
Okay, and I have one other question from Zoom, which is, as we all know, the entire centro is being dug up in order to lay down the electrical cables so that it's underground. And as a result, it's hard to get around. The interesting question is this. Given the fact that because of limited traffic and blocked traffic, there's real loss of business to those tiendas, is the town doing anything to subsidize or underwrite the business losses that owners are incurring?
Sí, sí, pescaste todo. El que pregunta dice que está claro que ahorita están moviendo todas las calles y agujerando para esos cables. La pregunta es si es, porque es muy difícil de moverse y algunos negocios quedaron fuera del tránsito, si el gobierno local o el gobierno estatal va a hacer algún tipo de subsidio o ayuda económica a esos negocios, dado que estas reparaciones están enfrente de su calle, ¿no?
Precisamente acabamos de, que tendrá 2 días, porque un lector me envió imágenes de video de su casa, de su cámara. El gobierno había declarado a algunos compañeros que había terminado, bla, bla, algunas calles y pues todo color de rosa. Y un lector me envió un mensaje privado donde me dice, pues lo que te están diciendo no es cierto, porque tiene esta calle 7 días tirándose el agua abierto y no han acabado, tenemos problemas de vialidad, la gente no puede entrar. Y hemos decidido nosotros mejor cerrar el negocio y tenemos problemas para pagar la renta, que por cierto no son muy baratas. ¿Por qué? Porque la gente no puede venir a comprarnos. Entonces, la respuesta es no. Por lo menos lo que nosotros hemos preguntado es que no hay ningún subsidio para esos comercios.
So he's telling the story of a reader of his. So he got some official photographs from the local government saying the street is done, it's beautiful, it looks like Paris. And then one of his readers sent him his security camera footage of the same street, and he's like, whatever they're telling you, it is not true, the water is everywhere, people can actually drive or walk on it, and we are indeed not having customers. So they decided to close down the business that's part of their house and just pay the rent and forget about it, because at least until this is done, because so there is no expectation of a subsidy. And no one is expecting that, and I think that's never actually happened. I will add personally that when COVID came, a lot of people in Mexico, across the world, the pandemic was here, they expected the Mexican government, the federal government, to subsidize a little bit to help businesses that were losing. That did not happen either. President López Obrador decided that that would not happen, and that was not even budgeted for the following year when the pandemic was still here.
Ahora, si me permiten, yo les haría una pregunta a ustedes. Como los que ya tienen tiempo residiendo aquí en México y que conocen a Jijic, esta obra que va a crear, creo yo que va a ser un poquito más eficiente la movilidad, al no haber postes en las banquetas y cables y todo. Ahora la pregunta es, ¿cómo ustedes pueden sugerirle al gobierno, porque son parte de una comunidad, que habitamos un mismo territorio, sugerir al gobierno cómo mejorar la movilidad peatonal, las banquetas, ¿qué van a hacer ustedes para tener esa comunicación con el gobierno?
So this is a question for you, because he likes asking you too. So he's wondering, he does think it's a good idea that these cables are coming down, not as many poles will be on the sidewalks, but he's asking, what do you plan on doing as a community, say immigrant community, to suggest to the government or pressure the government to make life easier for pedestrians? He's saying that maybe sidewalks should be bigger, or maybe there should be something done for you to be able to walk better in Ajijic. So are there any comments or plans on your part on that? Once all this craziness is over with that.
Well, I just came from San Cristobal. I was there for 5 weeks. When I came to Ajijic, I kissed the sidewalks.
¿Sí entendiste? Estuvo en San Cristóbal de las Casas. Cuando llegó a Jijic, besó las banquetas.
I'm serious. But I also, as a comment on that, I don't feel, personally, I wouldn't feel comfortable as a gringo telling what we want. I think we should conform to what is. I don't think people should be moving here that have, difficulty walking personally, or get someone to get to your food. So that's my personal, I don't feel comfortable telling to change a place for us.
Sí, ella dice que no se siente muy a gusto demandando al gobierno como extranjera que esas cosas cambien. Que de hecho, si tú estás en silla de ruedas o no te puedo ver, de plano ni vengas a Jijic a tratar de hacer eso, ¿no? Que ella como extranjera no se siente a gusto.
Creo que sí es importante su voz, porque al fin y al cabo cohabitamos este mismo territorio. Tiene una voz
I do
en
think your
inglés.
voice is important because we all share this land, this territory.
Tienen incluso una oficina que se supone ¿cómo se llama? ¿Comunidad extranjera? ¿Enlace? ¿El enlace? Ajá, el enlace con comunidad extranjera.
So es el gobierno municipal. The municipal government has a liaison office for you guys. I will add to what he just, I didn't know that, but I will say that for those of you who know Puerto Vallarta, that's Amapa's part of Puerto Vallarta, really close to the beach where the hotels are. So there, the gringos like you have a residents association. You've no idea how hard they make it for city government to do things. And you walk in, there's no poles, there's no potholes, the lighting is working, and I ask, what's going on here? The gringos did this because they pay their property taxes, they went to the city government, they demanded, and guess what? The city government does listen to them. City Hall in Puerto Vallarta, you're a big part of that there. So that could change here. I'm not saying anything about it.
Si me permiten acotar, la obra también incluye no solo el cableado. Lo que se anunció fue banquetas y nuevo alumbrado. Entonces, creo que Del has tocado ese tema del kilometraje para los vehículos de circulación 30 kilómetros por hora, ¿no? Es un tema que tú traes.
This 30-kilometer limit. So I'll translate and then I'll get it. So he's saying that the plan included not just putting the wiring on the ground, but also getting better sidewalks, putting public lighting, and maybe even a 30-kilometer speed limit that you've been covering, allegedly. No? Okay.
El proyecto que estaban analizando es modificar los reglamentos para que los vehículos no transiten más de 30 kilómetros por hora en esas calles, que se vuelva un poco más amigable para el peatón.
So they make it more, the plan is supposed, the regulations were changed and the plan included more pedestrian-friendly things, like better sidewalks and, these pedestrian crossings and all that, and a speed limit of 30 kilometers per hour on that downtown section, I guess.
Por eso creo que sí es importante su voz, sobre todo con los sectores en medios en inglés y con su enlace o ustedes mismos con la misma autoridad, un acercamiento para que expresen, por ejemplo, en Vallarta hay una zona donde no ingresan vehículo pesado, que es vehículo ligero. Guadalajara, muchas ciudades están transitando hacia ese vehículo de bajo peso y eléctrico.
So he insists that your voice would be important for City Hall to know that this is needed and you can specifically ask for things because you're property owners or renters and that would give you a right. So, and he's mentioning Puerto Vallarta, he's right. There are streets where the big cargo trucks and stuff cannot go through those streets. So there's little regulations that make life better for specific neighborhoods, of course, that you could press on that because you are residents of the same area.
Okay, I just have one question. It's mainly for Dale because she's been here for so long. I would like to hear your perspective on how you feel about the local government. Is it more positive, negatives, or what would you suggest they change?
This is called being on the hot seat.
Tightrope. Okay, yeah, I have lived through a lot of local governments, and that's why I'd like to get to that part of the conversation about the local government and how the Mexican people feel that it works for them. We've had good mayors, bad mayors, mediocre mayors. Depends on your perspective. I will say one thing. I think that, one change that we've lived through politically is the re-election. When the PRI ruled forever, one of the signatures of the government was no re-election, right? Suffrage, effective suffrage, no re-election. And that has changed, not for, the president, but mayors can now be re-elected for 2 terms. And you look at our current mayor, this is his 3rd term, because he had 1 term back in 2001, and because now he has had 2 consecutive terms. Can he wait for a few years and run again? Yeah, why not?
And this comment, su esposa viene ahora.
Yeah, well, again, that's another story. But I think the fact that, on the municipal level, the re-election of mayors is actually a good thing, because in the old days, they could never get anything finished in 3 years because of all the bureaucracy they would have to go through to get federal funding for things and planning and getting plans approved and all that. You come up with this great idea and then you didn't get it done. And so it'll be up to the next guy who doesn't want to give you any credit for anything you did as mayor. So they're going to go off on their own tangent, and with the possibility of being in for 6 years, you can actually do longer-term projects. This whole underground wiring thing it's complicated. Did that answer your question? I mean, okay.
Next question.
Behind you.
Devorah has a question.
I actually have a comment. You're talking about the mayor. About 3 months after I moved here, I fell in the plaza, and I fell into the handicap ramp because it looked the same as the surrounding tiles. So I actually went to the mayor and had a conversation with him. I think it's the same one because this was 5 years ago. And I said, there needs to be that yellow caution tape around it. It didn't happen immediately, but it did happen. So I felt heard and made a difference for maybe the next person to not fall into that handicap ramp. And also I will say that having been in a wheelchair, I could not go anywhere in El Centro on the sidewalks for 2.5 months. So curb cuts and better sidewalks, definitely.
Que ella está hablando de las rampas para sillas de ruedas, entonces que ha visto a gente caerse y como es muy parecida a la banqueta, fue con el alcalde precisamente, directamente, y le dijo que hacía falta una línea amarilla o algo así para distinguirla de la banqueta y que se sintió escuchada. So were the changes made actually? Yeah. Se hicieron los cambios, ella fue escuchada y ahora las banquetas se ven mejor. Claro que ella estuvo un par de meses en silla de ruedas y no podría ir al centro de cualquier modo, aunque eso esté arreglado, ¿verdad? Pero bueno, esa es otra historia. Pero en fin, la historia es que ella se sintió escuchada y ella sí fue y dijo que eso no podía seguir así.
Recordemos que incluso ese ya es una norma internacional. Incluso Chapala pertenece a ciudades amigables para los adultos mayores y es una norma que tanto construcciones privadas como públicas en espacios públicos tienen que acatar eso de que sean, ¿cómo decirlo?, accesibles para personas con alguna limitación en la movilidad, y las banquetas también tienen que tener cierta altura. Ya no es que quieran, es una norma que el municipio forma parte.
Yeah, this is part of an international regulation that Mexico complies with, and Ajijic is part, Chapala as such is part of these international friendly, pedestrian-friendly cities. So he is not surprised that they heard and took action, but that doesn't always happen, of course, as we have known, right? But the regulations are there, again, for that to happen, yes.
She's next.
I think I'm next.
I'd like to ask a little bit about the future of the sewage project that's currently going on in Riberas. And perhaps Carlos or Dale can answer this. Now that you just reminded me that we're going into a 3-year, possibly 6-year with a new government in municipality, I'm wondering what's going to happen with this mess that we have here now. And my second part of the question is, I don't understand how SMAPA versus the municipality works. I don't understand the connection. We seem to be dealing only with SMAPA regarding this project.
Sí. Bueno, ella dejó un poco abierta la pregunta. Era sobre el drenaje en riberas y qué está pasando, y ella teme un poco que si de verdad no hay una reelección o sea reelección, ¿cómo depende lo político de que ese sistema continúe, se acabe o siga?
Okay, let's see, how can I explain this? They are advancing little by little. In fact, there's something coming out in today's paper about part of what they're doing on this. You know, Riberas is, you have, your property's practically in the lake. This particular community has been ignored for such a long time, and the whole sewage situation has been going on forever because there's never been any kind of sewage infrastructure here. So people have relied on septic tanks, which are not always the most effective, and there's been a lot of leakage. So this government, well, it didn't start with them. I mean, they've been talking about this for years, that they need to have a sewage system for this community. The question is, you know, the costs of it are extreme. And so the government in various administrations had tried to get state funding and federal funding to put in, you know, a proper sewage treatment system for this area. So what they're down to is, there's supposed to be a pumping station down by the lake. They haven't gotten federal authorization for that because it's very close to the lake. And so that was shut down at least once, that project. And that's still pending. And again, you don't always get straight answers from the government on how things are going, you know, soon. And I have certain questions about it because I don't think that what they're talking about is actually putting in a sewage treatment plant. What they're talking about is putting in a system to collect sewage from this neighborhood, send it to the pumping station, pump it over to San Antonio, which is already oversaturated. You know, in general, the whole situation of sewage treatment in the whole lake area is, you know, is dicey. I mean, we have sewage system plants around the lake that work, others that don't, and you know, raw sewage going in. You know, I think the state should take a much more action in terms of making sure that the water in the lake is as clean as possible. And again, they don't want to spend the money. And if they spend the money, they want to build a big treatment plant that is very financially beneficial for some construction company. So anyway, that's where we are. They're making a little bit of progress on this thing, but whether it will be finished by the end of this administration or not, I have my doubts.
Ahora yo te pregunto, de ese proyecto Riberas del Pilar del Drenaje, ¿has visto un proyecto ejecutivo serio? Del proyecto que tendrá la construcción del drenaje en Riberas.
So now he wants to know if she has seen on that project an executive project plan, a planning thing that concerns that project.
I haven't seen it, but then I haven't really asked for it. But there, again, this is, you know, transparency issues with the government is they're supposed to have these executive plans, and they're not usually made public. And they're not put open to the public opinion. This is what happened with this underground wiring thing, which is why I was hoping Sophia could make it today. You know, they never asked the Pueblo if they wanted to see all this huge amount of money invested in this project. I mean, we all want to see the church, you know, with no wires in the way, and it's going to be all very beautiful. But I mean, you know, they don't they're afraid to listen to the people, honestly. That's my opinion. Because Ajijic in particular has demanded constantly, the people have demanded that there be these public consultations on the building projects. In fact, when they did around the plaza and they put the streets, cobblestones sunk in cement, as they call it, ahogado en cemento, there was a big uproar, and they took the case to the Human Rights Commission of the state and said, you know, this is not right. We were not asked, and so there was an instruction to the government that all of these projects have to have the consent of the pueblo. And it doesn't happen. They just, the government does what it wants. This particular project of the underground thing has been pushed by the state government and led by some guy from Guadalajara. And with no input from the community as to whether this is going to be beneficial or not. And as you can see right now, it's been very negative for the business community.
To what Dale just said, I'll just add, remember we've talked about agencies in Mexico City and acronyms and all that. You do need to remember that the ultimate authority regarding water in Mexico is the CONAGUA, the National Water Commission. Not so much on the municipal level, but the lake and the rivers and how they moved. So in Puerto Vallarta, I live 1 block from a river, the PTR River. So Mexico City has to give the order for these bulldozers to come so the river will flow when the rains come, and that takes a long time because instructions come often not only from Guadalajara, the state capital, but even Mexico City desk, where the guy doesn't even know where Chapala is, right?
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do them in order.
I wanted to comment about the fact that when you have a new presidente or new mayor, alcalde, that everything goes away. My Rotary Club provided 15 laptop computers for Saul Rodile School, which is now down. And we were told that we couldn't give them, that we had to rent them on a free, because the next presidente that comes in will take them all. So that is very, very upsetting. But the main thing I wanted to talk about is kind of the elephant in the room. We all know that our being here can have a detrimental effect on the economy. For us to pay, 20,000, 25,000 pesos a month for an apartment or a house is not a big deal. But we know that the local people are horrified at that number and have to move out of the city. And I understand that. However, we talked about this at the break. It's a double-edged sword. It has two sides. And I have had, in the 7 years here, 3 different maids to mucamas to clean my house. And I've asked everyone, is it better now that the gringos are here? And the answer is always yes. Now, Mexicans are very, very, very polite, very educado, very. And I know if they had resentment, they probably wouldn't say it. But everyone here, everyone I know, has a project to help. People, my friend June works at the dog rescue, the the sterilization of the dogs and cats. Everybody, without question, helps the orphanage, whatever. But I asked all 3 of them, and one of them said to me, my son, couldn't afford my son's school fees. And the gringo family that I work for 1 day a week paid his school fees. So we need to remember the amazing amount of joy we live with here. We live with people who are so kind, so happy. We live among smiles, and we pay for that. We try to give back. That's all I'm saying. Everyone here has a project. So.
Comments? Okay.
¿Lo entendiste? ¿Algún comentario sobre?
Okay. Susie was next.
De reelecciones de marzo. Sí, y creo que eso sí lo hablamos esta semana, pero adelante si quieres.
¿Quieren?
Sí, efectivamente viene un cambio. Este alcalde entrega el próximo septiembre.
He wants to talk
Próximo año,
about the
septiembre.
changes in the mayoral election, so there will be a mayoral change this September, yeah.
El proceso electoral a nivel local inicia oficialmente en octubre de este año, o sea, en 2 meses.
The electoral process begins in October, the official timing.
Ajá, es para elegir alcaldes, regidores y diputados.
To choose mayor, deputies, representatives in Guadalajara, and the council members, city council members.
Creo que por eso era importante lo que yo les planteaba de que hubiera esa interlocución con los próximos autoridades que pudiera haber, que los escuchen porque son parte de la comunidad de aquí de la Ribera de Chapala.
This is why he insists it's important for you to let these candidates and these mayors know that you're here and that there are things that are not going well, that you can raise your voice and they'll be fine.
Miren, y miembros de la comunidad extranjera, el último dato que yo obtuve por parte de la autoridad electoral es que cerca de 500 registros o que están empadronados en la última elección federal eran miembros de la comunidad extranjera que habían obtenido el derecho al voto a través de la nacionalización.
500? So he has, in Chapala, he has information from the National Electoral Institute that about 500 foreigners, immigrants like you who have been living in Chapala have gained voting rights through Mexican citizenship. We have one case over there. So yeah, so
Yo
he's…
creo que ya creció porque he notado que es muy obvio, incluso como yo utilizo mucho el transporte público, como les decía, veo que muchos miembros de la comunidad extranjera están acercándose a los servicios locales, como es la del INAPAM. He visto mucho eso y la del seguro, bueno, antes el seguro popular, ahora no sé cómo se llama, pero también he visto que están haciendo mucho ese trámite.
So he sees that number is probably larger now, 500, because he's on public transportation, he goes to health clinics, and he sees foreigners like you or former foreigners, new Mexican citizens, taking care of those discounts, the subsidies that we've been talking about, using their Mexican ID cards as well.
Okay, next was Susie.
Paco, earlier you were talking about the quality of the water over the quantity of the water, de la calidad antes. Y de eso quiero hablar, de la calidad. That, and Dale was talking about the sewage treatment plants that we need and such, but I'm wondering about the difference between the importance of how we have been changing, humans have been changing the water that's in the lake. Is it more, are we more concerned about the people and the businesses that have the sewage from those living around the lake going into it, or what might be able to be done about the toxic sewage coming from the agricultural and industrial businesses that are along the lake, the Río Lerma, que viene desde el Estado de México. Lo que está poniendo ahí, what they're putting in there at the east end of the lake, where we have high incremented diseases of renal problems and kidney disease and young children from no easily identifiable cause dying, and being the #1 in the world for children dying of renal problems, los niños muriendo de enfermedades renales más grande del mundo. Es en los últimos 20, 25 años, in the last 20, 25 years, we've had the sewage coming down the river, and all these people are dying, over 100 people dying. Which is the biggest problem for you, do you think? Is it the river bringing in toxic wastes, or is it the people around the lake and we're destroying it?
Sí, como hacer la calidad del agua en el lago, hacer una diferencia entre si crees que el drenaje residencial de la gente que vive en las pequeñas ciudades es algo muy malo, o lo ves no tan malo comparado con lo industrial. Lo industrial, la agricultura local y lo que viene del Estado de México, del río Lerma. Y ella está muy preocupada de la parte oriental del lago, que está más contaminada, al parecer, que la parte occidental.
Muy buena pregunta. Creo que el problema del agua ya nos alcanzó a todas las ciudades, a todos los núcleos de población. Creo que no basta con confiar en lo que nos dan vía tubería el gobierno. Creo que nosotros debemos hacer lo propio de nuestro hogar, de la casa para adelante. Nuestros hábitos, a lo mejor, a mí todavía me tocó poder tomar agua de los arroyos y del grifo. Ha cambiado. ¿Cuándo íbamos a nosotros a pensar que nos iban a vender el agua en garrafones? A lo mejor nuestra inocencia creemos que no iba a pasar. El problema ya nos alcanzó a todos, no de los de arriba, también a los de abajo. Yo les pregunto, en su comunidad, ¿cuántas personas han visto ustedes que están solicitando ayuda médica para enfermos renales?
So he says the water problems caught up with everyone around the world. He still remembers when he was a kid drinking from the rivers coming down into the lake. He says a lot of people never thought you would actually buy water in a garrafón like we do now. And he also says that there's a lot of work to do inside your house, not just trust on the water that's coming in provided by the government, but actually do something inside, coming in and out without water that you're using it. And again, he's asking you, how do you see this water quality problem? Is there something that Mexico probably should be doing differently, or Chapala should be doing differently?
Anyone? So actually, let me make one comment about that.
Sure.
Part of the infrastructural reality in, as I understand it, most Mexicano pueblos is that the water flow is designed to be intermittent. It's not designed to be continuous. And what that ends up meaning is that whenever the water is shut off, you get backflow into the pipes, and as a result, you get contamination. That's just a fact. And I think part of the dilemma is that unless you change that fundamental infrastructure issue, some of the problems cannot be solved except by having indoor purification systems.
Sí, lo que él dice es que parece que la infraestructura de agua de México está diseñada para ser intermitente, no continua. Y entonces lo que parece es que esa intermitencia hace que se junte desechos en esa tubería que ya existe y se haga aún más sucia el agua que llega. Entonces es como un problema estructural de infraestructura, por lo visto, que podría cambiar.
We were over here, and I think she was actually next.
Okay. I am interested in who do I go speak to? Is it the mayor's office that I go speak to concerning whatever?
La pregunta es, si ella está interesada como extranjera y quiere ir con alguien, ¿va a la oficina del alcalde o exactamente con quién? ¿Qué puertas toca? Good question. We have a Mexican here telling you.
Okay, I think I can answer that. A lot depends on what the issue is that you have. Getting to see the mayor is bordering on miraculous from my point of view. Sometimes he will listen to people if there's a group that's that it is looking for him. But if you have an individual issue with the government, don't look for the mayor unless you have like a rest of your. Okay, well there is a liaison. His name is Ricardo Razo. He's on, I think he's on Facebook. He usually shows up at the American Legion on Tuesdays, steak dinner day he likes, and and at the Lake Chapala Society on Fridays. He's usually there like from 10 to 12 or whatever, midday. So Ricardo would be your first person to approach on at least what your situation is, or what your problem is, and how it can be solved. He may send you to somebody else, but I mean, he's specifically assigned to dealing with the issues of foreign citizens, okay? And, whether it's a group or whether it's an individual, so that's where you start. There is another contact, which is called Atención Ciudadana. Paola, the water lot is in charge of that department, and there is there's a WhatsApp number, a phone number, or you can go to her office in City Hall, and so she can help arrange something like, you need, I don't know, you need the road fixed or the lights out in your neighborhood or whatever. You can also go directly to the delegación. I would like Paco to talk about delegaciones because he's from Atotonilquillo. How many of you people have ever even been to Atotonilquillo? Right.
Atotonilquillo, remember, that's the new word today. It's a small town where Paco came from.
Okay. I call it the orphan delegation because it is, geographically very removed from Chapala. It once pertained to Islahuacan, and that's why he said, I'm from Atequiza, Atotonilquillo. The two of them are like twin cities or twin villages, and they're like absolutely stuck together. And Atoto used to belong to Islahuacan, right? And no, it doesn't make sense. I don't know why. We have this distant thing, and of course they constantly, he complains that they don't get their fair share of taxes for what they, contribute.
Oigan, chavos, atrás, ¿podemos poner en Google Maps a Totonilquillo para que lo vean más o menos y lo puedan leer?
Okay.
We'll put it up on Google Maps so
Okay.
you know what we're talking
But, Ajijic has some legitimate claims that, the tax money that, because of high property values in Ajijic and higher rates, and also what they call the transmisiones patrimoniales, which is when real estate changes hands, there's a tax that goes with that, and it goes into the city coffer. And Ajijic is like generating a lot of that money, and they don't feel like they get their fair share back. But Atotonilquillo feels like they're abandoned. So I got a little bit off topic there, but you can go straight to your delegation office if you live, or to City Hall. I would go to Atención Ciudadana if you're in Chapala. If you're in Ajijic, the delegación, which is across from the plaza. San Antonio is on the plaza. Every town has their little delegation.
Yeah,
So
and
you
Dale,
can go there for
if I
specific
might,
things.
so it's so funny because Hyacinth handed me a long paragraph about who to get in touch with. And one of them is the liaison, and we can give anyone that information. He actually has a website, liaisonchapala.gob, G-O-B for gobierno, .mx.
There you go.
He's bilingual, by the way. Ricardo is completely bilingual. He used to work at Motiva. He and his wife also do a little entertaining on the side. But his English is great. So language is not an issue.
And I can give you the information later.
So,
You're
Ted.
next, and then you after you.
No, can you say that again, the website, and then we can get the guys. Chavos, podemos buscar la página web.
liaisonchapala.gob.mx.
Liaisonchapala con s.gov.mx.
That may be the email,
Oh, that's not a website?
but I'm not sure.
Oh.
Anyway,
We have an entire list of everyone who has registered. So with these answers, with this information that you really want to know, we will send it out to the entire group of you. So instead of us trying to say liaison, da, 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 we'll write it out and send it.
are there other questions? So you're next, and then you.
Yeah, expanding the circle, about the water is, we haven't talked about, and I'm really curious, where does our trash go? It gets picked up almost every day, and I feel like we pay almost nothing for that service because it's, inside of the yearly tax. And, next to that is, I see my neighbors have a lot of compost, palm fronds and leaves, because things grow so abundantly here, and I don't see it separated out at all. And I think there could even be a separate service of compost, and I'm betting that a good number of extranjeros immigrants would be willing to pay an additional charge for that. And also, about the recycling, like, where does our trash go? Where does it end up? Because that eventually ends up in the water, and we're throwing batteries, which is mercury, into the landfills, wherever these things are. And then also adjacent is the recycling, and we're not paying anything for that fantastic service. So
Entendiste más o menos. La pregunta es, ¿qué pasa con la basura de Ajijic y Chapala? ¿Dónde va a dar? Ella siente que es muy poquito lo que le cuesta ese servicio con su pago de impuestos prediales, y si podría ser una buena idea que ella está segura que muchos extranjeros estarían dispuestos a pagar un poquito más a alguien para que las baterías se separen, para que se haga composta, para que se haga un poco de... Si el sistema da para eso, yo creo que es la pregunta. Y si les puedes explicar, si es que sabes, qué pasa con los residuos de Chapala. I will say this is a hot political issue because trash collection in Mexico is a big deal everywhere. So. It's the American way, we know.
Efectivamente, lo que pagamos de la basura y el agua, vía impuestos, no representa realmente el costo que estamos haciendo. Hay un subsidio, lo que llaman participaciones federales, y de ahí es como una bolsa general. Pero recordemos…
So sure enough, what we Mexicans pay for water and trash collection is barely, it barely takes care of the cost. There is a big federal subsidy nationwide from that. Remember, our taxes go to Mexico City and then they come back. So this is part of the reason. So the local government couldn't take it on their own. It's always money coming from the federal government. Ay, perdón.
Efectivamente, recordemos que hay una discusión en estos momentos respecto a la situación económica de todos los que vivimos en Chapala. Tenemos cinturones de pobreza que a lo mejor si el gobierno pusiera un impuesto como en California para la basura y el agua, muchos no podrían pagarlo.
See, there's a lot non-collection of this. Even this small amount is often not even paid by a lot of property owners in Chapala as such. Even that little money is often not paid, like in many other services, yes.
Y recordemos que las leyes son de observancia general. No puedes decir tú sí, tú no, serían todos igual. Para el pago de impuestos y de la observancia es general. Lo que sí se puede, y hay algunas organizaciones, él formó parte de una que se llamó Ajijic Limpio, ahora sí que desde el ciudadano de a pie, desde la organización Vía Ciudadanos, se puede hacer reciclar la basura, la colección de pilas. Creo que hay un movimiento, ¿no? Ya no está funcionando el que tenían para el centro de reciclaje de Ajijic.
Sigue funcionando, and I think, somebody is here from the recycling center, no? Oh, here he is, okay. So we can hear about that. Just right off the bat, what's collected by the… Let me first translate. Oh, okay.
I'll first translate what he just said so we can come back to her. Because he's saying, of course, the general law is the same for everyone. You have your property taxes, and that's it. But he's saying there are other more private ways, like a non-profit that you could set up together, and the government would like to give you permission for, and then do the renovations and the renewals and whatever it is that more ecologically sound that you feel, maybe just in your neighborhood. But he's saying that can be done, you can organize yourselves, and then he's given us an example, the battery collection and renewing thing.
Okay. Green waste, there have been projects to collect green waste separately and compost it. Right now, nothing is happening as far as that I'm concerned. I'm aware. But what's collected by the municipal, well, the company that has contracted by the municipality is the one that collects door to door, okay? And that trash all goes over to Isla Huacan, where there is a relleno sanitario, what do you call that? A dump, yeah. It's supposed to be more than a dump, but anyway, so that's where most of it goes. And this gentleman here is the head of the recycling center, which operates separately from the government. I don't think they've had the kind of government support they need and deserve, and that may have to do with the long-term contracts that the city has with the both the garbage collection company, which basically once they collect it, they own it, and also with the relleno sanitario, with the how do you say it in English? Dump. The dump. There's a fancier term. Anyway, can we hear from the recycling center what they do? Does anybody want to know?
Hello, good morning. So the recycling center, okay. No, that's you. So the recycling center was started off as a citizens group, predates me. It was like 5 or 6 years ago. It became a formal nonprofit 4 years ago. And I don't know how the history became. We're occupying, if you will, municipal property it's west past the New Panchos, the Margaritaville, on the same side of the street as that. And it used to be, I was told 50 years ago, something to do with the military. But it was just a year and a half ago where we received a formal authorization from the city, a document called a comodato, that allowed us to be on the property. Until we had that, we could not get an account from CFE because they tried to prevent, because you have a CFE account, boy, you own that property and it's now mine. So we had that, we were able to get an account. We have a compactor. Last year, we, I think, kept 250,000 pounds of things out of landfills, predominantly glass, cardboard, plastic especially, is helpful. I've been told by Ecology that there is no really good centralized battery recycling in Mexico. And I wanted to make a comment earlier that with regard to water that was brought up, it wasn't until the 1970s in the United States where there was a legislation passed called the Clean Water Act that made it illegal for businesses to dump into the rivers, and it provided penalties for enforcement. This is what I think people that come from the States and Canada see missing, is enforcement of various different laws. Being an engineer, building laws or something that I see there's regulations, but they're not always enforced. Are there any specific questions about the recycling center?
Well, not the center, but I found a place to bring my batteries. It's in Chapala City Hall.
Well, I understand there's places that collect batteries. I'm telling you what I've been told is when the batteries are collected, Mexico as a whole doesn't have a good place to recycle those. It's a difficult technology. So, but the glass that we collect, 100% of it is recycled into new glass. So that's a very recyclable product, as is cardboard, which is problematic for us to keep dry right now. And we're still working a little bit further with these blue containers that you see, and Ajijic, the Sistos, that people sometimes will put the recyclables in there, but then they also like to put their garbage, and then it makes a problem for the city. I have, our frac does separate and takes green yard waste to a separate dump, a separate place that's where it's not mixed with other landfill items. So it does happen on a small basis in the area.
Thanks, Brad. And we need to be mindful of the fact that we only have about 2 minutes left. It's 12:30? Oh, okay.
Me permita más recordarles poquito de eso de la basura. Recordarles que en México tenemos vigente una norma para la prohibición del plástico de un solo uso. Íbamos muy avanzados contra el popote, la bolsa del refresco, la bolsa del mandado de Walmart, de los centros comerciales, de no hacer esa bolsa. ¿Qué pasó? El COVID, cuando llega el COVID, nos echó para atrás todo lo que había de esa norma. La ley está vigente que prohíbe los popotes y el plástico de un solo uso.
So he's saying Mexico is doing very well against, with new regulations prohibiting only one use of plastic bags, but single-use plastic bags. So that was going very well. The straws as well, the law against using and throwing away straws. However, he's saying the pandemic came and that brought a lot of things back, so it was harder to enforce those restrictions on plastics after the pandemic. What I will say is that I find a lot of friends that do no longer get a plastic bag in their grocery store or in their tiendita over there, and then when they have those products at home, they go and buy a plastic bag to put that garbage in and then throw it out. So I'm not sure we're just chasing around it. I will say that, and I confront them and I'm like, well, where else am I going to put it, right? So the whole system is a little bit crooked. But yeah, he's saying, again, the legislation is right, the enforcement was going well, but now the enforcement died out because of the pandemic. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to say we're ending at 12:30, so you don't have to worry about some time. Can I ask my question? Oh, I've been waiting for this for a long time. It's to Dale. I understand, and I'm very unclear about it, that there was a law passed that it required that all, I think it's mayoral candidates and gubernatorial candidates in Jalisco needed to be half male and half female. Well, can you explain that a little bit? Now, what I'm understanding is that they're not finding as many women as they had thought they would, and what I understand is happening is that the wives of these ex-mayors and governors are taking those positions. So, clear me up.
Okay, there have been efforts to get a more balanced, gender balance in government. I'm not sure exactly, where legally it stands, and Paco might want to talk about that.
50-50.
But, okay, what happened this year, and this implies Chapala, Islahuacan, and several other municipalities, is the State Electoral Institute put out a directive that the next mayors of those communities had to be females. They were imposing this strategy and saying the only candidates who can register for mayors in Chapala and Islahuacan and Zapopan and I forget where else, they had to be females. And there was, of course, some opposition to that. And that went, to litigation, and it kept getting approved by the electoral tribunals until they got to the federal level. And that is where they said, nope, it's against the Constitution, you cannot impose this. So meanwhile, things were heating up here locally, like, who are the women going to be? And of course, as you mentioned, it was going to be this mayor's wife, Erika, who's very well known. I took a picture of him up at the baseball stadium, and she had this, number on her shirt, which was a clear indication she was the pick, right? And then other women who have been, suggested have been wives of former mayors. Since the thing was rescinded and now it's a open playing field, of course, men are all juggling to see who's going to be the candidate of the different parties, but the PRI has said we are going to have a female candidate, probably the wife of a former mayor.
Me atrevo a apostar que la próxima alcalde de Chapala va a ser mujer. Uno como periodista tienes que estar platicando con todos. Y pues la clase política mexicana somos así. Tienden a ser, oye, si voy a ir, y son muy habladores.
So he would dare to bet that the next mayor of Chapala is going to be a woman, and this is part of the political system. They are raising their hands and they're making noise to see their chances, and this is how the system works, not only here, right?
Incluso me atrevo a decir que dos de las candidatas van a ser esposas de expresidentes. Uno que ya tiene historial, que la elección, hace 2 elecciones, que actualmente es regidor, hace 2 elecciones impugnó que una compañera de ella se quedara como regidora porque había perdido, tenía ese derecho, y otra vez está insistiendo en él en ser candidato, pero yo dudo mucho que sea una posibilidad real de poder ganar para Chapala. De las mujeres que tengo conocimiento actualmente que puedan tener la posibilidad de ganar Chapala, van a ser mujeres.
So there are at least 2 women who would be good candidates or candidates with possibilities to become mayors. And of course, some of them have been members of the city council, and they have, of course, fought each other and yelled at each other. So they know each other very well, so they will become good candidates just because of that.
Lo que pasa es cierto, el coraje o la población en general, cuando el tribunal decide que no sean solo mujeres, hubo un rechazo tremendo. ¿Por qué? Porque yo coincido, ya ocupamos una mujer que sea por primera vez presidenta municipal en Chapala, mujer.
So when Mexico City, the tribunal decided against this ruling on women, Mexicans were local Chapala people were not really happy about that. So I would ask you, who has the ultimate electoral authority in this country we talked about yesterday? What's that called? The Federal Electoral Tribunal of the Judicial Branch. Remember we talked about them? The INE organizes the whole thing, puts up the ballots, calls you on, and then who wins the election? The tribunal would decide on that, remember? We read the little piece of the law that said the ultimate authority on electoral matters is the federal tribunal, and there are local tribunals as well that we heard about. Nunca. Hillary Clinton. He's asking if you have had a female president in the United States. I'm saying
We tried.
you're trying to catch up again with us. We'll see one of these days.
We're trying to catch up with you.
Bueno, estamos viendo otros tiempos. Yo digo que estamos en una era digital. Se habla de un analfabetismo digital. Creo que la oportunidad ahora sí, si las mujeres a nivel mundial son el 58%, en Chapala son el 62%, pues es hora, ¿no?
So he's saying there is a good chance. He's saying that overall population, 58% are women, and he's saying in Chapala that 62% are women. So he's all for women becoming mayors of Chapala.
I would like to ask Kay what she thinks about this particular initiative on the part of the State Electoral Council, whatever institute, of them trying to impose the election of a female. Is that right? I mean, should those authorities impose this thing, or should it be something that just springs up naturally from the will of the people?
I'll butt in and say, before she answers that, I would like to ask her, because, Kay, this is a woman president we have. She has spoken a lot about women's issues. I don't know if you're aware there's a ministry for women now. So I want your opinion. If you're a young woman, you and the women around in your household, do you guys feel that since she's been president, things have improved for women? Are there more electable, or are they getting better stuff from the government? Is there something you, your classmates, your mother, the women around you can sense? And then we can go on the political question if you want.
Okay. Personally, no, I don't really feel like there has been a change or improvement for women in anywhere, neither for myself or for girls that I know. It's still something that, it's the idea that has been there forever, that in a way men are better than women and they can do less things and they're only good for the house. Yes, the idea is changing, you know, like women are the ones that can go and work and make the money for the house and all that, but still it's just, it doesn't change. It's really a lot of the same. And about the political part, yes, I think it is really cool that we would have the possibility to have a female president, or mayor, sorry, here. But it is sad that it has to be something obligated or, obligated or mandated for there to be a female. Like she says, it would be a lot better if it could happen naturally and nobody would second or question it. It would just be something natural, and maybe she wins, maybe she doesn't, but it wouldn't be because of her gender.
So I will add to what she said. The women's issue politically in elections is really controversial, because what happened for a while in our Chamber of Deputies in Mexico City was that because the candidate for that district had to be a woman, like the quota system says, so I'm the politician, I'll have my wife be the candidate, she will win, likely, she wins, and then she resigns. But the husband is the deputy, what's that, the deputy. So she's there a month, and then she's asked to resign, she resigns, and then the husband becomes for the rest of the 3 years there. That was something that was very common a few years back in the Chamber of Deputies. So women were used just together. And the law says, well, you know, if you can for health or whatever, your deputy, just like your vice president, will become the new representative, the new deputy. Okay, just so you know. That was very common, yes.
So this was all hinged on the woman winning the election. So it was a 50-50 chance?
Well, the two things. Remember, we have deputies being elected directly by voters, 300 districts like that. So yes, the party did know that their party, regardless of who the candidate was in that district, would win. They pre-knew, the PRI knew they would win. So it was all set up just so that she would win, fulfilling the regulation on quota. However, remember that we have this proportional representation thing, where a lot of the deputy positions are assigned by the political party directly, depending on how many votes they had. So they would also use that. They would appoint directly, politically, this woman without an election, and then they would have her resign for her husband to go in there. So there were two ways of doing it. Remember, we have 300 representatives that are directly elected by the people and 200 that are appointed by the political parties directly, depending on how much votes they got. Yeah, this is different. You know, in the US, how many representatives do you have? 400 something, yes. We have, how much, for a population of 350 million, we have 128 million and have 500 of these guys in Mexico City, okay? And of course, many people don't want to get rid of them. It's good business.
Here's the next question.
So, do you think that Presidente Claudia is good? Or do you think that because she is a politician, she is corrupt?
Entonces la pregunta directa es, ¿crees que es buena Presidenta Claudia Sheinbaum?
In Canada, I have heard it said, and in the United States, I've heard it said, at times we vote for the lesser of two evils. And I think of the President Claudia has done things for the aged and for women and for the indigenous women, and yet I find no Mexican person who tells me she's any good.
Él entiende que la presidenta ha hecho cosas buenas para los adultos mayores, para las mujeres, pero no encuentra a un mexicano todavía que le diga que ella va muy bien y no es corrupta.
Es que nos ha ido tan mal que ya no sabemos qué tan mal pudiéramos estar, ¿no?
We've been so bad before that we can't imagine being worse than we actually are.
Por eso no puedo decir si es buena o mala. Hay que esperar a ver cómo nos va, qué tan mal nos va, ¿no?
She can't say whether she's good or bad. Let's just wait until she finishes her term and then analyze the whole thing. Yes. That is the politically safe answer.
Can I? Oh.
I'm sorry.
I have a point of information. I heard somebody mention it, but locally you can take your expired batteries to Chapala City Hall. I took some and they put them right inside the front door to the left. So that made me happy. And I have a question about the situation in Sinaloa. If the United States forcibly tries to extradite those officials, what do you think the ramifications will be? Thank you.
Sí, ella está hablando de Sinaloa y Rocha y todo eso, que si Estados Unidos decide venir por ellos y llevárselos a fuerza extraditados, ¿qué consecuencias o problemas puede ser que eso cause, en tu opinión?
Miren, a los que nos gusta leer, yo por eso digo que son de ciclos la vida y que también la relación México-Estados Unidos también son de ciclos. Yo para no emitir una opinión creo, a veces leyendo de la historia de México, que estamos regresando a los 80s. ¿Recuerdan aquella situación de México en los 80s con Kiki Camarena? Cuando el PRI gobernaba directamente a México. Échenle una leída ahí de lo que pasó en ese tiempo, en esos, el cambio cuando llegó Carlos Salinas de Gortari. Y veamos lo que está pasando ahora en México y se darán cuenta que al fin y al cabo es política de alto nivel.
So he's saying that he insists on this cyclical timeline of history, Mexican history, and he feels like what's happening now with the U.S. Is very similar to what happened in the 1980s. He's talking about Camarena, the DEA agent who was killed here in Mexico, and the U.S. was enraged and really angry about that. Remember yesterday I told you that Ronald Reagan every now and then closed the border. This was one of the times that happened, remember? So it makes sense that he says this is similar to what we've already experienced in the 1980s.
Recuerden que en Estados Unidos hay una elección en noviembre. Y recuerden también que nosotros tenemos una elección en junio del próximo año. Entonces creo que a veces lo que nosotros percibimos es muy diferente a lo que a nivel popular, en donde está verdaderamente el poder, es muy diferente a lo que está sucediendo realmente abajo. Nosotros sí resentimos todo lo que pasa, pero a nivel popular no creo.
This is high level politics, he says, and it seems different up there than down here in our towns and cities. He also says that it's very political because there's a midterm election this year in the US, but not only here, but also in June of next year in Mexico. So that, of course, changes things, but he doesn't want to commit to what would happen.
Sí, yo lo único que les diría es que ya nos hagamos una pregunta cuando nos quieren decir algo, es cómo llegó esa persona a tanto poder, por qué sigue y por qué ahora ya quieren retirarle ese poder. Creo que antes de aceptar algo como cierto que nos están diciendo, tenemos que tener nosotros ese raciocinio de hacernos esas preguntas.
Yeah, he's saying we should all, as citizens, we should always ask ourselves how that person with so much power is there. He's not giving any names, but how that person with so much power is there, how he happens to continue being there, and how we should react down here as much as we can when that actually is happening and they're keeping power. Why is that happening now? There's a reason, yeah, like to consciously consider. That's what I call political analysis, right? We do it very well.
I would like to talk about a pet peeve of mine, which is graffiti and the local gangs. And I live in a neighborhood where I painted over graffiti, and obviously from a local gang. And the next day or 2 days later is back. So my question is, what is the city government or Chapala government doing about keeping the town being run over by graffiti like in Guadalajara?
Sí, ella habla del graffiti de los chavos de la región. En su colonia dice, yo pinto mi muro por el graffiti, lo dejo muy bonito y unos cuantos días después. Entonces, para variar es si el gobierno está haciendo algo, si hay una intervención oficial para evitar esto.
Buena pregunta, realmente no lo traigo en el radar. Sí existe una regulación, como una falta administrativa, nada más. Pero tampoco creo que haya un programa específico para atacarlo porque, siendo honestos, yo no lo veo ahorita como un problema grave, en el sentido que tenemos como comunidad ahorita problemas muy graves: movilidad, agua, servicios básicos y creo que seguridad, percepción de seguridad. Creo que son los tres ahorita conceptos que podría decir que es la prioridad ahorita del gobierno local.
Yeah, he's saying that this is not very high on the political agenda. There's water and basic services to attend to, and this is indeed an offense. It's more of an administrative fault. What's that called in English? You get a fine and you're not even in charge of anything. It's just like an administrative wrongdoing thing. I'll take a couple of anecdotes. I'll butt in there because I had an aunt who was a nun in Mexico City. So she had her convent. She was Mother Superior, Catholic, of course. And then in Mexico City, she had the convent, which used to be an old mansion. And there was this huge wall from side to side. And she would tell me, Carlos, I've been fighting these graffiti boys. You know, I go out and tell them to please, this is a big wall. It was yellow, I remember, like Mexican yellow. Well, but then I said, the Holy Spirit came onto me and I decided to paint the Virgin of Guadalupe out there in the middle of the wall. I never again had graffiti anywhere on that wall. So I remember her story now because, yeah, it is a problem. Another one is, you know, the comics company. Ever heard that? Where you go and buy your paints and your aerosols and all that. So the comics company has a very good program of bringing over graffiti painters who can be very artistic and provide them the materials and work with, ask permission from the wall owners, and then they can do such amazing work, and they bring an instructor, and so it's called like Ciudad Bonita or something like that, pretty city or something like that, and they do such great work all over the place. You know, you can find a comics store every other block, so they have this is a national program, and they have been doing very great. Does that solve all of the graffiti? No, but it kind of channels these guys' need to express themselves.
It's a drug local. It's a tag. Yeah, I guess not graffiti, but it's a tag.
But those tag signers do join these comics programs, believe it or not. You know, I've seen it work, and not all of them. Will they continue signing the tags? It's also a territorial thing and a turf thing, so I understand that. But there are glimpses of hopes here and there. Thank you.
What I didn't hear about was the representation of Ajijic in the local government. I know there's Chapala. I understand, if I'm not mistaken, that the mayor of Chapala is kind of like the county, what I would call, of Chapala and Ajijic. So is there a city council, and do we have a certain amount of people from Ajijic, from Riberas, and do the people elect them? I just want to understand the organization of that. Thanks.
I think that's the question about delegations that you were talking about. Yeah. Would you like to explain that to us, or should we let Paco do that for us? You know, this is nationally, the municipalities, when they have a city head, which is Chapala in this case. But these other smaller delegations, that's what they call them, work with the city government. I think she knows that even better than me.
Okay. Okay. The city council, ¿cuántos son ahorita? ¿Son 15? 14. Okay. So the city council, the state determines how many people sit on the city council, and I understand there are 14 right now, and it goes up, it'll go up in the next cycle because it's related to the population. Okay. So how does it work? In every election cycle, the different parties put together a slate, and the first person on that slate is their candidate for presidente municipal or alcalde or mayor, okay? And then, there's a list in a certain order of the other people on that slate. When the election returns come in, then based on, the numbers, the one with the most votes obviously will be mayor, and a certain number from his slate will be seated on the city council, and a certain number, depending on the proportions, it's all mathematical and percentages, from other parties will also be seated. Most of the parties these days now put together a slate that will include representatives of each of the delegaciones. So Chapala, as he said, is the municipal seat, which you would consider like a county. And we have the 5 delegaciones, which is Ajijic, best known, Senate, Son 6? Okay, I'll name them. Ajijic, San Antonio, Santa Cruz de la Soledad, San Nicolás de Ibarra, and Atotonilquillo. That little forgotten one. What? Riberas, but it's not, no es una delegación. See? Okay, okay. So they try and get representatives of each of these major population areas on their slate. And of course, depending on how many people on their slate get elected, whatever. But there is generally representation from all the different communities. Whether they're the best choices, that's, another thing. So the city council, they're supposed to meet every month, minimal. As a reporter, I used to attend these city council sessions, ask her mom how many hours she spent there as a kid. And because there are regulations that they're supposed to be open to the public. Again, going back to the whole transparency issue, this particular government has not been very good about opening up the sessions to the public. We don't, even as members of the press, we do not get notified in advance unless some insider on the city council says, hey, they've been having sessions, the last week of the month, putting it off till the end, and sometimes at 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. So, public participation in or observate, you can't actively participate in this, but you can be a witness. You can sit and watch, but you're not generally allowed to speak unless you get authorized. But, they used to be really open public sessions, and that is not happening anymore, in my view. So does that kind of answer your question? Okay. Paco?
Okay.
To what she just said, I will insist on what we talked about yesterday about the independent agencies. We had a transparency and public information agency, remember? That was the agency all the way in Mexico City that would make sure that Jalisco, Guadalajara, and Ajijic here would open up their public records. A lot of these things are happening because we lost those big institutes that the government claims were too expensive and too complicated, and we did not need, okay? Just so that you put the two together.
Permiten ponerles en contexto números de la importancia de Ajijic y de la región. Chapala en números de oficiales, somos cerca de 56,000 habitantes en todo el municipio. Ajijic es la segunda núcleo poblacional más grande con cerca de 12,000.
So 56, he's going to give you the official data, 56,000 people in Chapala, 12,000 in Ajijic, which is the second biggest delegation.
Con cerca de 10,000.
Atotonilquillo, 10,000.
Ajá. Le siguen San Nicolás y San Antonio, perdón, San Nicolás y Santa Cruz. Ajá.
San Nicolás y Santa Cruz.
Y San Antonio, esto es del último censo del INEGI. En septiembre de este año se va a volver a actualizar la cifra de población, que creo que va a crecer aún más este lado de San Antonio y Ajijic. Ajijic está bajando mucho su población local.
So these numbers obviously are going to be continue changing, but Ajijic is reducing the number of locals, of local Mexican citizens. I wonder why.
¿Y por qué estos números son importantes? Porque de acuerdo al número de población es la representación por el poder político que tiene esa población en el cabildo.
Yes, the city council will have a number of delegates from each of the delegations depending on the population in them. So you guys may be here physically, but you're not legally, because the Mexico government doesn't see you as voting citizens, so you will not be represented in that city council
Por eso
delegation.
el candidato a alcalde o presidente municipal, todos los partidos siempre han sido de la cabecera municipal, es decir, de Chapala. Y Ajijic siempre ha tenido 2 regidores y a Totonilquillo 2 regidores, de los que ganan. Cuando pierden, Ajijic ha tenido hasta 4 regidores. Por ese impacto poblacional que tiene.
So even though you elect a mayor in Chapala, these other delegational representatives also depend on the votes that each party got around. It's in a small municipality, pretty much what's been spoken about in the whole 300 national districts and all that. It just comes into this small city council membership depending on the population. Yes.
So this is a big one, and I can't believe we didn't get to it, and that's, she brought up the tagging, and I'm thinking we didn't talk about what is our real security, and how does it work? I've heard policemen only make 200 pesos a day, and this is just a giant subject, but I feel very secure, but what is the deep structure of the security apparatus?
Entonces, la pregunta grande y fácil es lo de la policía. Lo de seguridad, lo de si es cierto que los policías ganan $20 al día y listo, ¿no? ¿Cómo está? No sé si quieran tú como dar una visión general de cómo funciona aquí en Chapala.
Se supone que el gobierno nunca te dice por cuestiones de seguridad cuántos policías tiene, pero Chapala yo me atrevo a afirmar que no rebasan los 100. Para 56,000 habitantes.
So the government doesn't usually tell you for security reasons how many police officers there are, but he calculates that there's about 100 police officers for the whole Chapala 56,000 population municipality.
Okay, y de esos 100 los vas a dividir en 2 turnos de 24 horas, menos los que están incapacitados. ¿Cuántos quedan?
Those 100 police officers are divided into 2 shifts of 24 hours. So that's pretty much half of the amount. Okay.
Su jornada laboral es de 24 horas trabajadas por 24 de descanso. Un policía de línea en Chapala anda ganando cerca de los 8,000, 9,000 pesos, menos impuestos.
They work 24-hour shifts, one day but not the next, and they earned about 8,500 pesos per month before taxes. Which comes down to $400, right?
¿Por qué no es atractivo venir a trabajar como policía Chapala? Porque nuestro vecino Ixtlahuacán de los Membrillos, ellos aparte de su sueldo, por pertenecer a la zona metropolitana de Guadalajara, cada mes les dan un bono de 5,000 pesos, que es la mitad de su sueldo. Entonces, ¿quién va a querer venir a trabajarse a Chapala en vez de irse a Ixtlahuacán?
So it's not a good idea to become a police officer here because Ixtlahuacán de los Membrillos is the closest municipality right next door. It is part of the metropolitan structure of Guadalajara, so they get 5,000, me dijiste, 5,000 peso bonus at the end of each month, which is more than half their salary. So that is very attractive. That's because the local Guadalajara city government adds that to the municipality police officers, just because they have this number of municipalities around the capital city, right?
with that, I have to say thank you very much. We've had a very, very interesting 4 days. I want to definitely thank Carlos. It's been a pleasure to work with you again. And I want to thank all of you for persevering and being here and learning a lot. I've learned a lot, and I'm very pleased that I was the one that chose this topic. I have a little something for our panel, and while I'm doing that, we have, where did they go? We have 2 women who were going to be collecting the evaluations. I think, are they outside? Oh, they're outside. So as you go out, could you hand them your evaluations? If you haven't done it, certainly take some time right now to do it. And oh, she has them out there. Okay. Thank you again. I can't wait to see us next year, see what we're doing. Any comments before we go? You're welcome. Thank you. I really enjoyed doing this. Thanks. It's on, well, it was on Zoom. Now it'll be, I don't know exactly when, but it's coming out. The recording is coming out on YouTube. Do you know? No. Okay. It'll be out in the next couple of days on YouTube.
I will just add.
2 days were up on the website this morning.
Oh, okay. So did you hear that? The first 2 days are already up on the website, the recording. Great.
That's something I think you will also send out with the rest of the information over email. Yes. So, I just wanted to thank Didi as well. This is the second time I'm here. You guys are great. I've always been very well treated. And I always say, if you have other topics we should be discussing and do a series on, or just independent topics per day, we could do that. Would like to hear from you. And if you can bear to have me again, I'll be happy to come back.